We've all been expecting the worst with the Marvels, a feminism-filled, mediocre CGI, forgettable MCU experience, and of course the news surrounding it hasn't been good so far since you've got posters that look like they were made from a high schooler learning Photoshop, trailers getting completely ratioed, and now the executive producer has said it was specifically designed for women to relate to, and the director saying it's so different from other Marvel films because it's really wacky and silly. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media so you can see when my content is posted, and of course if you do really enjoy the videos and live streams I create, consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So starting off with this Bounding into Comics article, it says the Marvel's director Nia DaCosta claims film is different from other Marvel films because it's really wacky and silly. I miss the days when the MCU was serious, when it was a little bit darker, a little bit grittier. It just felt so much more, I don't know, realistic, which is funny since we're talking about characters with superpowers and super suits, but I am so sick and tired of things becoming wacky and silly. I know that ultimately it's because companies want things to be as family friendly as possible so that they can get lower ratings on content, and that means more potential eyes on it, and of course if you have kids interested in it you can sell merchandise and toys. But at the same time, as an adult who has supported the MCU since it begun, I have been very disappointed with the recent direction. I know a lot of you have been as well, and this is, a kind of a major reason why a lot of us also do not like Dungeons and Dragons anymore. Of course, Wizards of the Coast has gone super woke, but they've made all of the D&D products just so wacky and silly, and whenever I hear this, it honestly makes me cringe a little bit because this is not something that I want to see wacky and silly. Yes, the MCU has always had a lot of humor in it, and we did get movies that had a lot of comedy like Thor Ragnarok, which were good, but to hear them just say it's so different because they take it to this extreme is definitely a red flag. But I've got to be honest, I don't think I could have any more red flags up for this film because I have not been excited at all for it. I have had no hype for this movie. I think it is going to be a complete disaster. I think that people are going to hate it just because we have heard that it is filled with feminism. The CGI that we've seen in trailers has not looked all that good. It's been delayed multiple times. I also recently talked about the rumor that Kevin Feige wants it re-edited so that it feels more like Barbie because, of course, Barbie made so much money. But it says the Marvel's director, Nia DaCosta, recently claimed that her film sets itself apart from other MCU fare because it's really wacky and silly. It says that her comments came in an interview with Total Film magazine. She said the biggest difference from the other MCU movies to date is that it's really wacky and silly. Thor: Love and Thunder had a lot of whack in it. It was pretty silly. Ragnarok did the same thing. In my opinion, Ragnarok was much better because it did still have a pretty serious tone to it. But then you've also got Guardians of the Galaxy, which was very comedy-focused. So James Gunn, of course, led comedy in the MCU. Taika Waititi followed in his steps and took it to the extreme and to, let's be honest, a dumb level. And things like Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk did have quite a bit of comedy, but those sucked, not just because of the humor, but they were just plain and simply so bad. I mean, the scripts were bad, the acting was poor, all of it was just not good. But it says the worlds we go to in this movie are worlds unlike others you've seen in the MCU, bright worlds that you haven't seen before. She previously described the film at last year's D23 Expo in a sizzle reel saying, "Full comic book madness. I don't want films like this to release and to be bad, but there's just nothing going with this movie that makes me feel like, wow, this could actually be good." I'm sorry, you've got 3 mediocre actresses in the lead. I do not like Brie Larson at all whatsoever. Imani Vellani, the actress who plays Miss Marvel, isn't great. Teyana Paris is She just hasn't been in much, and in the MCU, we saw her in WandaVision, and that wasn't enough to get me excited for it. I don't know. It just seems like a recipe for disaster at this point. It says, as for her claim that the film is wacky and silly, the first teaser trailer made that abundantly clear. The trailer was overloaded with humor resulting from Captain Marvel, Captain Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel swapping locations with each other every time they activated their abilities. I don't really think that this humor is going to stick with people. I just don't see this movie going over well with general Marvel audiences, but to add to, the potential disaster, we're now finding out the executive producer is saying the film was specifically designed so that women from all walks of life could relate to it. I don't know exactly what this means, obviously, because we have not seen the movie, but 9 times out of 10, Hollywood these days have been adding content into their films and shows so that, people could relate to it, but that doesn't mean like general wholesome messaging that just human beings in general could relate to. It's always very targeted, like, it's okay if you don't want to, follow the norms of the past, if you want to do things for yourself, if you want to have your own job and have your own life and not have to rely on men. When they're talking about things being designed for women to relate to, it's definitely something that makes me a little bit worried. Maybe the messaging will be subtle. Maybe it'll be good. We all know, though, that it probably will not be, and that this will most likely be a clusterfuck of epic proportions. And it does seem that behind the scenes, people at the company are starting to get a little bit worried about this movie. Like I mentioned, I did talk about it recently, but we have Kevin Feige apparently behind the scenes trying to get individuals to re-edit the movie to make it feel a little bit more like Barbie, and that doesn't really come as a surprise because, of course, Barbie made a boatload of money and it did push very similar messaging to this film. But I do think that at the end of the day, people are sick and tired of political narratives, of feminism-filled garbage. No one wants to pay to see content like this. A big reason why Barbie sold so well and did so good is because it's got name brand. It's got that recognition. Some of these MCU characters are almost as old as Barbie, but Barbie's lineage as a children's toy has made it so much more well-known and has never had a feature film, so that in of itself has brought in a giant audience that I feel is partially burnt out by these Marvel characters. I don't think that many people really know Miss Marvel or Monica Rambeau, and I think that when we look at Brie Larson's history and Captain Marvel's history, it's just not good. It's not positive, so I don't think that this movie is going to come close to what Barbie did. Maybe we will be surprised because, of course, Captain Marvel did $1 billion at the box office, but I also think that Captain Marvel did $1 billion because she was new to the MCU and people were excited to see what they were going to do, and the trailers were really solid for a film that ended up coming out and just being a major disappointment. But only time will tell. We've still got a few months until this movie releases, but right now, hearing that it's so different because it's really wacky and silly just raises a lot of red flags and honestly does not make me excited at all for this movie. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and thought that it was important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.